is going live.
Delta Charlie says my cuckoo clock is telling me it's 9 o'clock.
Yeah? Well, that's what I heard. I heard somebody say, Delta Charlie said, that their cuckoo clock is telling them it's 9 o'clock. That must be Eastern time because it's 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. And we are here. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know if you can hear us. Real quick, I did a thing, and that is a lot of people, especially when they're watching on the replay, often comment about how the audio seems low. Well, I dug a little bit deeper into the whole audio situation, and I think I amped it up a little bit without having people go completely like deaf, I hope. If at any time the audio is like doing a weird crackling thing or it's too high, I've amped it up too much, just let me know. And now that I know how to adjust it a little bit better, I can turn that whole situation down just like I turned it up. But thank you so much. We've got Dave from Iowa saying, yeah, it sounds okay. So that's good to hear. Fish Tank Barn right out of the gate coming through with the Primetime partner, Primate, Prime Timer. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Dave.
Yeah, Dave from Iowa is here. Thank you. So we've got some cool announcements that we're going to have in a couple seconds here. Daryl's here. What's up, Daryl? Nice to see you.
Hey, Daryl.
So we had a rather busy week, and it's getting busier as time goes on. We've got a lot going on in the fish room, and we have a lot happening in just fish land in general. So this week in review, we had the Monday video come out. If you haven't had a chance to see that, that was the 33 long that you rescaped. And that's got a lot of Seiryu stone. I like what you did with it. We went with just a rocks only sort of thing.
Yeah, and then you had to go ahead and call it a mortar tank.
You know, I didn't even, so truth be told, that wasn't really what we were going to be. It's not like what we were trying to do or what you were trying to do.
Seiryu scape.
Yeah, but when I was editing it and I was really looking, I'm like, this kind of reminds me of Mordor. So I did that.
I can see that.
Yeah. Now that it's out there, I think we're going to have to Mordor it up a little bit more because Mordor, if you haven't watched Lord of the Rings, it's kind of a place where it's just a barren wasteland of stench and filth. Now, the tank is not stinky or anything like that, and it's not filthy. But you've got the barren wasteland with the Mordor rocks, but I think we have to add the volcano or the all-seeing eye. I just think that's going to have to happen. So that was Monday. And then I really liked your video that you came out with today. And that video was what?
Thank you. Floating plants. I got to show off my collection. Yeah. I had a lot of fun taping it and hanging out with my floaters.
Yeah, and it was really cool because I don't know that much about floating plants. I know there's duckweed. I know there's frogbit. And beyond that, I really don't know of other types of, and the salvinia, but you actually went through and you compared them all by size and you showed them. And so that was pretty cool. So if you're interested, maybe you've never done plants before and you want to just put some green in there, or you want to maybe reduce nitrate levels and have something that's going to take some of those extra nutrients to try to control algae, floating plants can sometimes be a way to do it. And you basically listed out a lot of the floating type lilies sort of things, as I like to call them. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And then tomorrow for the members only, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I'm going to do because there were two things. One, we got some new fish that I am excited to show off here, but we also have the studio that is making some headway. I don't know if this is going to be the very last week that we're here with the live stream in this area. We're hoping that next week we'll be in the YouTube studio to do the live stream. If we are, I'm not 100% sure it's going to be 100% done because we have a lot of work to do in 7 days to get it done.
Yeah.
What movie is that from? So we have 7 days to try to get that done and some tanks to scape and some things to do and some lighting to get right. And we've got to move the computer in there and all this stuff. So it's going to be a lot, but I'm hoping that next week will be the first week of the YouTube studio, especially for live streams. So that's happening. Friday, we're doing a species profile on Primetime Aquatics. So that's the plan there. Got a cool fish I want to show you guys. Some of you probably kept it before. Maybe some of you haven't, but I like it. And then Saturday, especially for you, you've got a lot of scaping type things you're going to show off. And so probably on Saturday, I think on the small scape, you're going to start to see some of these tanks that are actually going to be in the live stream studio. So that is kind of where we're at with the whole situation. Now, people have been asking because now that things are starting to pick up again, where are we, what's the next things we're going to be at? So first of all, we're going to talk about the swap that just happened this weekend, because there was some really interesting things, observations that we made being part of that swap last weekend. Coming up, we have a few things going on. The first thing is, obviously, the next time we'll be out in public in a thing where, we can have the opportunity to meet people is Aquashella. That's the 14th and 15th in Chicago at the Expo Center there. Was that what they call it, the Expo Center? By the way, I've got links at the very top of the chat. I've linked the Aquashella thing if you want more information. I'm sure most of you know what it is by now. But yeah, we've got Aquashella coming up next month. And then after that, there's a couple more things that are coming up. If you're in the Midwest area and you want to come hang out, one is, and I posted this, and I will probably post it as a reminder later, but I'm going to be speaking at the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association on the 12th of September. That's a Sunday. That meeting starts at 6 p.m. That is a great time. So if you haven't had a chance, or you don't get a chance to see me do my thing at Aquashella, either in obviously Orlando, it's already done, or you missed the Chicago one, but you still want to hang out at a smaller area or a smaller venue, then the GCCA will be a great place for us to kind of hang out. And then after the talk, we can hang out, say hello. There's a little mini auction afterwards. Again, the gcca.net, that link is in the top part of the chat. That is the 12th. It's a Sunday, 12th of September now, not August, but September. I will be doing a talk there. And then the 26th of September, I think, will be the next swap that we're going to be a part of. And so we're trying to get a lot of our fish in order, and we've got to give some time for some fish to breed because we sold out of a lot of fish this past weekend. So we've got some juveniles that have to grow up and get a little bit larger before I think they are of sellable size. Got some other things going on that I think are going to be exciting. So that, I hope, hopefully we'll see you there, because it was really fun this weekend getting to see everyone.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, and the GCCA, by the way, to go to the meeting, it doesn't cost anything if you're going there for the first time. So just come in, stop by, watch the talk. There's a little mini auction afterwards, and there's a lot of fun stuff going on there. So it doesn't cost you anything if you're showing up for the first time. So it's really cool. That's going to be in Northbrook, Illinois. But again, go to gcca.net. You can get more information there. Bonnie, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, hi, Joanna and Jason. I think the do.
Yeah, hi. That would just be hi.
Hi, Joanna and Jason.
Bonnie.
Do mystery snails have heavy bioload? I had a beta ABS, one mystery snails. And one mystery snail. I fed very little. Change and gravel vac the tank every week. Nitrates were off the charts. I tried saving him, but he passed. Mystery snails do produce a fair amount of bioload. So that is a very common thing where mystery snails, the advantage of mystery snails to me is they basically convert algae to mystery snail fecal matter. So I personally think it's a lot easier to deal with mystery snail fecal matter than trying to deal with algae. So that's kind of the trade-off you're getting. Obviously, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio because the snail's eating uneaten food and algae. And then obviously a lot of that's going to biomass to grow the snail and all that. But yeah, they do produce a fair amount of waste. But I don't know if it would be enough to really take your nitrates like completely crazy like that. But maybe, I guess it depends on the type of the size of the tank. Jimmy P, thank you so much for becoming a primetime partner, Primate.
Jimmy, you finally made it to a live stream. Welcome.
Glad you're here. Glad you are here. So, yeah, so I think talking a little bit about the swap, first of all, again, thank you so much for everybody who was able to come and stop by and say hello, because to me, that was the most fun part. And I think you would agree with that as well.
Kasha's here.
Kasha, hello.
Creative
Pet Keeping
was hanging with us.
She shared a third of a table with us, so she had her stuff there as well. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, thank you so much for coming by and stopping by and saying hello. That is the most exciting part. I would go there just for that. So I would go there just to hang out and talk with people, because that's the fun thing. Even if we didn't have any fish to sell, it'd still be cool.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be stuck talking to each other.
Yeah, or walking around the thing and spending too much money. So in a way, it's a win-win, because we get to hang out with you, and we don't have an opportunity to walk around and spend as much money, and that's helpful for us as well. So I guess it's a win-win for us, a win-win.
Yes, yeah.
All right. So as we say in microbiology, it's kind of a commensal relationship maybe where we get the benefit, but the other person is unaffected. So
unless, of course, you'd want to show up and then you can walk around with me and we can all spend money.
Oh, now
That's an option.
that would be something interesting. That would be cool. Maybe that's something we could do at the GCCA swap in September. That would be cool. Maybe we should talk about that. That's something that potentially we could do in the September GCCA. By the way, the GCCA swap, if you went to the Greenwater one, the GCCA swap, at least in terms of vendors and people, are probably about twice the size. So that would be cool. Just kind of walk around and be like, all right, what's a team effort here? So, yeah. The other thing, too, is in the future swaps, the pre-order thing on the website worked out really well. So that prevented some people from... I always feel so bad. We put the list out, and the list is usually on whatever website. So if it's Greenwater, they say, okay, here's the vendor, Primetime Aquatics. Here's what they're bringing. GCCA often does the same thing. And then what inevitably happens is we get people like right at the start. They get there early. They go make a beeline for the table. They're like, how many bags of Maltese do you have? Or how many Similis? Or how many Cyprichromas? And you get the first couple people who do that, and they buy them all. And then... people are coming by the rest of it like, hey, you got any Cyprichromas? You said you're going to have some. Like, yeah, they sold out in 10 minutes. So to avoid that, my strong recommendation would be to, when we have it up, and we'll put those things up on the website, usually a few days before the swap or whatever we're doing, to do the pre-order, because that guaranteed people that they were going to show up and the fish they wanted were going to be there. So that was a pretty interesting thing. There are some observations that I made. I don't know if you made any at the swap, because we didn't really talk about it. But one of the things that I noticed, and this I think it's good news for the fish keeping community, because it's not the first time that I've made this observation, or I'm not the first person who's made this observation. Over the last year, it seems evident to me that the fish hobby is growing. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a sustained thing or not, but to me, it really does look like the fish hobby is growing. The swap that we did, Greenwater swap, I've always enjoyed it. It's a little bit smaller than the GCCA, but it's just got a real nice feel to it. It was at a bird haven conservatory thing, and that's
Bird Haven greenhouse.
Greenhouse. That's a really nice facility, but there were a lot of people there, and probably close to twice as many as I'm used to seeing. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think they tallied it because they didn't charge anybody to get into the swap, but I would assume there was probably 400-ish people, and for a Greenwater swap, and I have no idea. I'm just kind of guessing, like ballparking it off of my brain, 300 to 400 at least. And that I know everybody that's part of the Greenwater, who runs that, said, wow, the turnout was really good. The parking lot was full. And that's not only that, but I've heard that from some of the fish store owners that we've talked to, some of the people who are in on the business side of fish keeping, and they've all said the same thing, that over the last year it's been pretty crazy, which leads me to the next observation, I think, and that is there were a lot of people asking beginner questions there, and I love that. And if you are somebody who's newer to the hobby and you see us at a swap or an event and you've got questions that you're like, oh man, this is kind of a beginner question, I hope people don't think I'm stupid. I'm a teacher. I tell my students all the time, just assume that if you're learning something, it's okay not to know it. Right? What's not okay is to not know you don't know it and then not seek to get the information you need to be successful, whether that's fish keeping, school, life, whatever. So if you see us at these things, stop by and ask the questions that you're like, oh, I've been wondering about, the water chemistry and all that kind of stuff, or fish tank maintenance, or can these fish go together? We fielded a lot of questions like that. I know you fielded quite a few questions about plants and smaller tanks, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, there was quite a few people asking questions, and let's face it, a swap is a great place to go. And it's not just asking me questions. Most, if not every single person sitting at one of those tables is a pretty hardcore hobbyist who are really into the fish that they breed or the plants that they propagate. So these are great people to be asking questions. And quite frankly, there are people there who know a heck of a lot more than I do, where When they're talking, it's time for me to be quiet and listen, right? So when we go to some of the meetings, whether it's Greenwater or GCCA, the last meeting we had, which was Sunday, they had at least, they were talking about master breeders there. And sometimes you'll see that on the internet, like, oh, we're going to this master breeder's house. They had at least 6 of them. Master breeders are typically those who have bred, and at the GCCA, at least 100 species of cichlids. But the conversation they were having is, okay, well, now we've bred 200, 300, 400. There are people there who bred 400 different species of just cichlids. That's not counting all the other community type fish that they've bred. The person who gave the presentation on Sunday, Rick Perez, he's unbelievable. He's a guy, when he's talking, I just listen. And he's talking about the fish that he's kept since the 1960s and all the crazy fish I've never even heard of that he's bred. And it's just absolutely crazy. So those types of meetings are really fun to go to. The swaps are fun to go to because you're going to get some people who have real life experience they've been keeping fish a lot longer than I've been alive and have bred things that I've never even heard of. So it's a fun time to do that, to ask those questions. The other funny thing, this is actually kind of funny. How many times did you hear this? Yeah, so after everything kind of happened and everything shut down, I bought a fish tank. And then what happened?
Got a few more.
Yep. And I have never heard that story so much as I did this past weekend where, I bought a fish tank and I liked it. So now I've got 6.
Yep.
And in a year, right? Or I started out with a 5-gallon and then I got a 29 and then I got a 75 and then I got 3 125s. And it's like, all right. So I'm just looking for some stock to stock up my latest 125. And I thought that was pretty cool. So people are really, it's not just that they kind of got into fish, it's that they really got into fish. And I did hear a couple people were like, I started out with 1 and then I went to 9. Now I'm back down to 6, right? We've talked about that a lot of times in the past where you find your level of comfort so that the hobby still remains a hobby and fun and it doesn't turn into a job that makes things less enjoyable, right? We got a couple super chats coming in here, so let me go ahead and recognize those before we get to the rest of the lessons. We mentioned Jimmy P becoming a primetime partner. Thank you so much. That link, by the way, is up at the top of the chat with the other links. Fish fan 20-gallon long. I bet I know your favorite tank. I've been looking forward to learning from you tonight. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate the super chat. Glad you're here hanging out with us. Dan, thank you so much for the super chat. Any experience with getting fish shipped from Snake River Cichlids or Imperial Tropicals? Is there an online cichlid vendor you would use instead? I don't have any experience with Snake River Cichlids. I've never heard of them. So I don't know. They might be great. I have no idea. So if somebody here has had experience with them, feel free to chime in. I have gotten shipments from Imperial Tropicals, and I thought there was one shipment. I think this speaks a lot more to who they are than even, every shipment came in. It was great. I did have a shipment one time where, and it wasn't really their fault. What happened was the post office, the USPS, they tried to deliver the fish. I was here, didn't hear the door, and then they left. And they took the package back with them, and they were in the box an extra day. And so when I finally picked them up, it was a situation where there were some fish that did not make it. I called them. They were really good about the customer service, so I didn't have any issues with them. But I haven't dealt with them a lot. But when I have, it was a fairly positive experience. So the thing with us is I don't need to buy cichlids online because of the GCCA and all of the crazy fish that they've got. In fact, next month they've got the members only rare fish auction. A lot of people ask where I get, like on Monday, we got the Furcifer Razibas in that 33 long. That's a very rare fish. That's not something you typically walk into the store and find. Even at the rare fish auction, they were very expensive. But if you were to go to, like, let's say a local fish store, you could easily pay $70 to $80, maybe $100 a piece for those fish. And I got 6 of them last year, wound up with 4 of them surviving. I think I've got a male and 3 females. Luckily, I know I've got at least 1 male. But that's the reason why I don't really get a lot of cichlids from pet stores. I don't really get a lot of cichlids from online because of the GCCA and all. And people are constantly BAPing cichlids, which means they're doing the breeder awards program. So you get points for all the cichlids that you breed, and you get plaques and rewards for that. And when they get those awards, they have to bring in a group of 6 juveniles. So they usually are about an inch or so, depending on the actual size of the fish. But usually they're about an inch, and I picked some up this weekend. That'll be part of the members only video probably tomorrow. But I get those, and as long as you have patience with cichlids and you're willing to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to get these fish at an inch, and it's going to take maybe 6 months for them to start to show a little bit of color, but I can get them for pennies on the dollar, then that's typically what I do. So that's the long answer to that. What you got? Did you want to say something before?
Yeah. All right. So first of all, we have Erna from, good morning from Belgium. Very
awesome.
Nice.
That's
Good
really
morning.
cool. Good morning.
Yay for Poirot.
Yep.
And Whips World. You were going to go to the swap, but then you just didn't.
Chickened out at the last minute. Come on, man. Well, lucky for you, there's swaps coming up all throughout the fall and the spring. The GCC has released their schedule already through, gosh, I want to say through the end of 2022. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. Kasha said one cool thing about swaps is that you can find really cool fish items that are sometimes not sold online. So a swap is the only way to get it, i.e. homemade fish food. That's true.
Yes, that's
There's
true.
a lot of stuff that you can find that people will, like the homemade fish food. Some of the plants are quite rare as well. We got some fish that from the swap that are not necessarily easy to find. So that is definitely something, just generally speaking, that's really cool. I would say, however, that the number one thing that we saw was probably the number of people who are just really getting into the hobby. Would you say that was the number one observation?
Sure.
It's just
so
many people and the excitement. And then I guess the point to all this is for those of you out there who are experienced, now is a time in the fish keeping hobby where we have to exercise some patience and try to hold back on the judgment and know that people are human beings that they don't always do exactly what they should have done before they buy the fish. And so sometimes people are going to make a purchase or do something that is maybe for someone who's experienced, like, oh, wow, you can't believe you did that. But for them, it's like they're just trying to figure things out and they didn't know. And so a little bit of humility and a little bit of, okay, this is what they did. They're learning from it. They're asking questions. If they go to, and the Facebook groups are notorious for this. I almost don't like, I very rarely ever answer questions because I'll find that even if I go in there and someone's got a question and I answer it, it just starts a back and forth storm of people being like, you're wrong, they're wrong, why'd you do this? You know, they ask a question and all of a sudden they get 50 bad things of feedback. They're new about all the other things they did wrong, and they had a question about, hey, what kind of food does this fish eat? And all of a sudden people are just flying off the handle. Well, that fish needs a 75 gallon, not a 55 gallon. Those fish are wrong. The temperature's wrong. Your gravel's pink and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, I get it. We do those things, but we need to do them nicely. So just have a little bit of patience. There's a lot of people out there who are not, they're not quite, maybe they don't have the 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years of experience, and we're here to try to help them along and have success, because that's what it's all about.
That is what it's all about.
Yep.
And FYI, Clint's here. Hey, Clint.
What's up?
Everybody say hi, Clint. Everybody's already said hi, Clint.
Everybody's already said hi, Clint.
Yeah.
So that's the story there. And I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to mention.
For like what I learned?
Yeah, what did you learn? Did you learn anything, or did we exhaust all the learning?
I always get questions on plants. Where can I find cheap plants? Because aquatic plants can be expensive. And if you are part of a club and you go to these swaps, it's a great place to get plants. And not only that, if you're unsure, you have the person sitting right in front of you that has raised these plants. They know what tank it came from, what to do, what won't work. So it's like a win-win. And then you can do afterwards, you can have a mini swap like we did with Daniel. Me and him, we did a little mini plant swap afterwards, swapping plants. That's good times. And driftwood. Great place to get driftwood. And the guy that I get a lot of my driftwood from, he even gives like suggestions. It's like going to a butcher or something and they say what to do.
Butcher.
He was so funny. Oh my gosh, he was awesome. Because he's like, because I was looking at certain pieces, that I had gotten. He's like, oh, see, I see this, doing this. And I'm like, heck yeah. So we're talking scapes and stuff. So it was pretty awesome.
You went to the wood butcher. So Katerina asked, so is GCCA open to the public? That's a great question. It depends on what we're referring to. So to be clear, GCCA is the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association. That is one of it's the biggest club in the area, I would say. A couple things about that. If you want to do the rare fish auctions, like the one that's coming up next month, I think it's on the 8th of August, you have to be a member. Now, membership is only, I think it's like $25 a year. So I promise you, just the membership is going to more than save you money if you buy the rare fish, if you go to the rare fish auction. If you want to attend the meetings every month, then yeah, they would probably want you to be a member. And again, that's that $20 to $25. It depends if you're doing a single membership or a family. It's $20 to $25 from my recollection, but it is it's worth every penny. If you want to go to the swaps, you don't have to be a member for the swaps, but it is a $5 entrance fee at the GCCA. At Greenwater, lately, the swaps have been free. But for both Greenwater and the GCCA, to get to do the monthly meetings, if you're going to do it more than once, then typically people, they prefer that you become a member. Now, if you want to come hear me speak on September the 12th, you've never been there before, just come. Nobody's going to ask you for money. So just come, hang out. I'll do my thing. You can hear that, and maybe we'll have some free, a few free things to give away when we do my talk on the 12th. So if you stop by, there's a little extra that might come flying your way. And those of you who don't ruin it now if you went to Aquashella Orlando, because things went flying all over the place too. I almost put out somebody's eye. No, I didn't do that. So, yep. It's going to be cool. So you can go to the meeting without any issues. Swap, like I said, it's just $5. You don't have to be a member.
I did see a question earlier. Are we bringing fish to Aquashella?
Probably not. And the reason we talked about it, we've gone back. So right now I'm saying probably not. That answer might change, at least in terms of maybe doing some pre-orders. The issue that when we talked about it is, so when we do the swaps, and this is probably something good for you to know, if you ever do pre-orders, you buy our fish, what we typically do, what I do is we set up a big giant, a couple 30-gallon totes of fresh water the night before, dechlorinate it, put an air stone in there, make sure it's fresh water, and then we wake up really early in the morning. So on Sunday, we were up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the entire family was downstairs in the basement. I was down there by like 4:05, and everybody else stumbled down there probably about 4:20 after I was like, where is everybody? Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, we're bagging fish starting at around 4:30 in the morning. Right? Now, again, it's fresh water. There's nothing in it. We usually don't feed the fish the night before or that morning to try to cut down on the amount of fish waste that's going to wind up in the bag. The problem, if it's a normal swap, it's not that big of a deal because you get to the swap, people buy their fish. They're usually home by maybe 2:30. Fish go in their quarantine tanks, hopefully, even though we don't sell sick fish and we don't have ick or anything in our fish room. Always quarantine your fish. But if we did that at an Aquashella, one, I already know we're going to be up fairly late those nights. And so the idea of possibly not going to sleep at all, because if Aquashella Orlando is any gauge as to what this is going to be like, I think I was up until at least midnight or 1 o'clock, and then John and I and Fishy Biz and a couple other people, I'm pretty sure we stayed out till well after, not out, but we were just sitting around talking till well after 2 o'clock in the morning. And the idea of getting up at 5 to bag fish doesn't excite me. And then the other issue is they're going to be in a bag potentially from 4:30 in the morning until whenever people leave Aquashella, which is usually much later in the day. So I don't think we're going to be bringing fish to Aquashella, but I haven't completely ruled it out yet. So let's see here. I saw a couple more of the super chats come in. Michael, thank you so much for the super chat. You guys are a big part of helping the hobby grow. I hope so. I mean, that's kind of the purpose of the channel, and the purpose of our community is to help people out. And if we're not doing that, then for us, I don't know if there's much of a point. So, but thank you. I appreciate it. Fish Tank Barn. I thought the hanging bag setups were interesting at the swap. Well worth the drive from Detroit.
Yeah.
Hey,
like
real
those.
quick too, Mike, how are the fish doing? So the Cyprichromis and what else did you get? Was it the Caudalpunks? I think it was. Let me know how they're doing. But yeah, I don't know if you've ever been to the GCCI one, Mike, but it's like I said, it's about twice the size, twice as many people. But yeah, the hanging bag thing is something I've thought about. So it's interesting for sure. All right, let's see here. Let's start answering some other questions. Did I finish my thought with the whole? Yeah, I think I did. Sometimes I'll half make a thought and then not finish it, and that's not the best thing. Freshwater facet. My friend said, Joanna's excitement makes me really want a shrimp tank too. She may or may not have purchased a tank at Aquatics on the way home. That's pretty cool. Yep.
Oh, those shrimp will get you.
Yeah.
Oh. Don't look at Flip Aquatics website then.
Yeah.
If you don't want more,
gosh,
because
yeah.
it's just like it's a little
packed.
shrimp candy store.
Oh my gosh, fish tank barn. The first time I bagged fish after the pandemic was brutal. I was way out of practice. Yeah, me too. I don't know if you could see it. Right there, you see that? Right there, that's a blister.
He's injured.
I'm injured. And I've my fingers are killing me because I don't use rubber bands on the bags because I'm always afraid they're gonna, break so I'm just, we bagged the three of them, the two boys and Joanna, they're the ones catching fish, and then they're handing me fish in little collection things, and I'm the one that's bagging them. So we bagged up, I think it was 53 bags of fish in what was it, an hour and 30 minutes, like an hour and a half. But I'm the one that's, yanking those things as tight as I can.
Yeah.
And I'm a real stickler I don't want to get to a swap and have a bag look semi-deflated, like there was air escaping. I just don't like that. I don't know if there's just some OCD in me I can't handle that. So if I get to the swap and I see a couple bags, are like, I didn't tie those tight enough. So I'm like, with everything I got, and then I got the blister here to show for it. So my battle wound, my swap battle wound, it's killing me, man.
Tim Walker says that we should have a tank behind us.
Yeah, Tim, I agree with you on that one, and we're going to fix
why?
that situation when we get to the new live stream / YouTube Primetime Aquatics studio.
Yeah,
so
that will be rectified.
Yep, it will be. We will have a very different feel, I hope, than what we do now.
This piece of furniture, unfortunately, can hold about 25 pounds.
Yeah, we've mentioned that before.
horrible.
Like that
It's
dresser.
like made of cardboard or something.
Yeah, it's probably
Otherwise-
the flimsiest thing I've ever. That was not.
Otherwise, a tank would have gotten put up there so fast.
Yeah, looks okay, but yeah, I would have that size dresser, and then one that you've got in your area that's basically the same size.
Yeah.
I would have zero issues putting at least a 55-gallon on that thing that you've got in the studio. On that thing behind us, I would seriously be concerned with a 5-gallon. And I thought about, because they send it in pieces, and I actually thought about getting some wood screws out and throwing some extra screws in there, because I'm like, this thing is horrible. So, and we got 2 of them. Yep. Clint, thank you so much for posting all the stuff, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Clint.
Let's see here. How many members for Primetime? That's a great question. I don't know. I know we're
A million?
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, 1 million member. We're on our 1 million member march for Primetime members. I know it's over 100. So, but I haven't looked in a while. So we've got a nice little community going. Let's see here. Dave from Iowa says we got to get over 100 likes. Well, we did that. So
I went out and I actually liked it.
that's weird.
I did. I
All right.
actually liked it.
Okay, well that doesn't.
I
that one doesn't
pre-liked it
count.
because it hadn't actually really started. So I was just hoping I would like the chat.
All right. Well, Jeff's got a question, and he wants to know, what plants are peacock cichlids okay with? I have a few anubias. My peacocks they're probably, I don't know, I wouldn't say they're atypical, but they eat everything. So yeah, everything to me means that everything I've put in there. So jungle val, crypts, hornwort, any type of floating plant, duckweed, salvinia, frogbit, they eat all of that. Anubias, I could see them leaving alone. In fact, I've seen a lot of videos of people who plant, or not plant, but maybe glue anubias to rocks or wood, or put them in like those aquarium co-op easy planters are pretty good. Although I probably wouldn't have to do that with anubias because it'd be easier just to glue it to something. So that might be the extent of what I would try, just because they like to eat plants, but they also like to dig. So if you've got any plant that's rooted and you're not using like one of those easy planters, you're not really doing a good job of getting it between the rocks, chances are they're going to tear the stuff up anyway. So I know they eat, at least for us, water wisteria, water Sprite. That was all a really good salad for them as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yum.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
there are questions on our shirts. First of all, this one,
All right.
you may see at some point soon, slightly different. That one is from Aquashella.
Yeah.
Now, do we know, are they going to be the same for all the
I don't know that because this one actually says on the bottom here, and I don't feel like standing up, but it says Orlando, Florida.
Right, are they just going to stamp the different cities,
I have
or
no
are
idea.
they going to have different ones?
That's a great question.
I'm curious because that's a possibility of 3 shirts this year.
Yeah, got to add it to the collection.
We have a problem with shirts.
We do. We have a problem with.
We love t-shirts and stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm a big sweatshirt person too. I love sweatshirts. I don't know why I'm addicted to them, but I am. So, all right, let's see here. We're going to scroll on up because Fish Tank Barn says, I have good luck with Val and African cichlids. That's good. I'm glad you do. Because, man, mine sure as heck didn't want to have the Val in there. Jimmy P says, I can't wait to see the new studio, but you could stream from a phone booth and I would watch. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that.
Find a phone booth. That
Yeah,
would be fun.
do they even make those anymore? Because if there was a phone booth, I would definitely go in there and then I would change clothes and come out with a cape.
Well,
just for fun. I can't
to
fly and I have no superpowers, but
I want to go to England just to see the red ones, the red phone booths.
do they have
They're
those?
cool. Yeah, they do because they're like iconic.
So Bob has a question. Any tank mates with gold ocellatus and a 40 breeder? Ooh, boy. So I could tell you what I would do, and that would be no. Because gold ocellatus, when it comes to the shell dwellers, they've got a heck of an attitude. In fact, I know Kasha from Creative Pet Keeping. It was a really good one, too, by the way. If you haven't seen it, she put out a YouTube short.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious because she's got some gold ocellatus, and she breeds the heck out of those things in a 20-gallon. But if it were me and I were putting in a group of gold ocellatus, they get so nasty. I mean, you literally put your hand in the tank when they have fry, and they are just relentless. So I wouldn't. I mean, even with my brevis, I've got a bunch of Cyprichromis in there, and you can tell when they're down there next to a shell, they're constantly, and it's kind of exhausting for them, but they're constantly chasing the Cyprichromis around. So I would leave in a 40 breeder. I just don't think it's tall enough. Now I do have gold ocellatus in a 125, and there's all kinds of fish in there. I've got Neolamprologus calvus and Tiger pictilis, and I got some ophthalmal tilapia, ventralis. I have what's the other one that kind of looks like the Tiger pictilis? I can't remember, but it's another goby-looking Lake Tanganyikan. I have some Meleagris, which is another shell dweller, but it's a 125, and so the gold ocellatus all tend to stay around the same area. They all kind of hang out together, but in a 40, if you start getting some breeding action, they're just going to be like pow, 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 and just constantly be attacking, I would think. All right, let's see here. What you got? You got anything?
This is a very interesting question from James.
Okay.
I've never thought of it like this. Okay. Does the height of the tank stand influence fish personality? Like if they're super low to the floor or up off the ground?
Mm-hmm.
I would say quite possibly, especially if you have very personable fish.
Yeah, I would say that too. I also tend to think, and I don't know if this is really necessarily true or it's just been my experience and I just kind of keep reinforcing it in my brain, but I tend to think tanks near the floor tend to be more stressful than tanks a little bit higher. And they're just because maybe it's just because they're just seeing legs and feet constantly. Or potentially animals. That's another thing too. If you've got cats or dogs that are taking an interest in the tank, that might stress them out a little bit.
Them down.
And I do think you brought up a good point, and that is fish get accustomed to, especially something like cichlids or some of the live bearers get really excited when it's time to eat. And so I think if nothing else, if it doesn't I don't know if it necessarily impacts their behavior, but I think it might impact the
Fish keepers.
relationship between the fish keeper and the fish. Yeah. Yep.
That's why I really like the tanks that are in the kitchen, because we're always in the kitchen.
Yep.
Or by my desk. Bob.
Manes, tails, fur, and fins. Can't wait till Friday.
Jess.
Please let everyone know if you want to. Yeah. So thank you very much. I'm going to be on manes, tails, fur, and fins.
Cool.
Live stream on Friday. I believe that is it, and just correct me if I'm wrong, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. Is it 8? I think it's 8 to 10. So yeah, looking forward to it. And we'll be hanging out there. I have no idea what you have in store for me there, but I'm sure it'll be fun. And I'm looking forward to it. All right, let's see here.
Wait, I saw this before. Joshua, how to get rid of purple algae on the tank glass.
Purple algae. I don't know if I've ever had purple. I've got the red stuff, and it's a real pain because that is a little bit more, I mean, you got to use it. So for me, the way I do it, the best way for me is a razor blade, because even the ones, the store-bought ones they sell with the handle, and it's just kind of got the little metal piece. It hasn't worked for me.
No.
So we get the red algae. So if you look at, let's see, probably the last video where you would have seen it is any time where I show the albino hecali. There's red algae spots all over that tank. And to get that off, it's a razor blade. And that will get it fairly easily. Everything else doesn't. Like the regular algae scrapers and stuff, forget it. There's not even any point to it with that. It's kind of like that really hard green algae that you get sometimes, and you're just sitting there with like the mag scraper, and you're just like scraping back and forth for like 15 minutes. Now, if it's got the little razor blade attachment, that works better. But that red algae is no fun. I'm assuming that's kind of the same thing, like that purple-red color algae that we're talking about here. Felicia says, my Pygmaeus cories, 16 of them, hide nonstop in my 20 long in the rocks. No bullies, heavily planted. They're just shy, I guess. Tips to draw them out. Love them, but they hide. Yeah, sometimes they do that. I think ours have done that from time to time. What's gotten ours to come out is the other fish in the tank. So just feeling secure that, and we have them in our 55 gallon right now. That's our Flip Aquatics nano scape that we did in a 55 gallon, where we have a bunch of different tetras and some cherry barbs, and we've got some platies in there, and it was just all that action. I think the fish are like, okay, there's a bunch of fish out here. They're all having a party. I don't want to sit behind a rock. So sometimes, it doesn't always work, but sometimes just having fish, what we would typically call dither fish, out there just allowing the other fish to feel more secure, sometimes that can help. Yeah. What you got? You got something?
Well, Wendy has already left because she's getting up for work in 4 hours.
That's rough.
So, Wendy, if you're already gone, good night.
Yep.
If you're not, good night.
Yeah, that's a rough one, getting up early. Right.
Wait, this is, see Keith? Read Keith's.
Hold on, where's Keith?
Super chat. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you for the super chat. Love the antlers behind you. Can various species of tetra be kept together without aggression or inbreeding? Same question for Cordoras. Thank you for all you do. They do look like antlers.
They do when you look. Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
it's pretty funny. It's kind of tiding us over until we move. But it's driftwood. It's two different pieces of driftwood merging as one. And then I have a little fish sculpture. It's made of metal and glass. Yep. That's just kind of like sitting there temporarily. So when you do look back, it does kind of look. It could look like a variety of different things. And if I take off my glasses, who knows what it would look like.
Yeah, it does look like antlers. Fish. It's like a fish head with antlers. Interesting. So anyway, to answer your questions, can various species of tetras be kept together without aggression or inbreeding? I've never had tetra fry even survive in a tank because they are egg scatterers. So they're going to scatter a bunch of eggs. Those eggs are going to cling to things. So normally when you breed tetras, if you're doing it intentionally, there's a couple ways to do it. Either people will put in spawning mops and let the eggs kind of attach to the mop and then remove the mop to another tank. Or they'll use marbles at the bottom of the tank and let the eggs fall in there, and then sometimes remove the adults and let the eggs hatch eventually. But I have never had tetra fry survive because they eat the heck out of little babies. So I wouldn't worry about them interbreeding for that reason. And I don't know if... So if you had, let's say, neons and green neons and maybe black neons, although I think that would even be a stretch, could they potentially interbreed? I think the greens and the standards might form a hybrid, but I don't even know if the black neons and the standards would even pay attention to one another in that way. As far as the aggression goes, we have a few tanks. I've done a number of tanks where I've had different types of tetras together without any issues. Right now, In the 55 gallon, we've got blue tetras. We have, do we have other, wait, so hold on, blue tetras.
The gold.
Oh, we've got Ember Tetras and Golds together, 0 issues. The blue Tetras in the 55, I thought they were in there with another Tetra, but now maybe I'm thinking those are the cherry barbs and not another type of Tetra. But we've done it a number of times without any issue. The big thing with the Tetras is just keeping them, each species, in a large enough group where they're just going to want to hang out with each other. And so typically for me, the standard is, okay, don't keep them in any less than groups of 6. I think it's kind of, that might be pushing the lower end. I like to basically go 10 or above, 10 individuals per species or above. But now some tetras are aggressive. So for instance, if you did like Buenos Aires tetras and Colombian tetras, I've actually done that combination, and that was a big mistake. The Buenos Aires tetras were way too aggressive, and yes, they would nip at the Colombian tetras. Those more aggressive type tetras, Emperor tetras, are another one that can be a little bit nippy. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm going to keep a dozen of those with a dozen. Red eye tetras are another one that can be a little bit more nippy. So you just have to be careful. But if you're doing the smaller, less aggressive ones, then they usually are okay. For Cories, I think you would probably have a better chance of them interbreeding than the tetras. But again, the thing there is usually, not always, but usually when you're breeding Cories, you're kind of trying to do it, because often what happens is they're going to lay the eggs on the glass, and our albino Cories do this probably, would you say, like once every couple weeks? I go down there at least, and I notice a bunch of eggs everywhere. In fact, I've done videos. The video that we did where we scaped the 29, so it was a couple weeks ago, where we said, okay, we've got this before and after on the thumbnail. The after one, you can actually see albino Cory eggs all over the place. They're on the front glass, they're on the back glass, they're on the leaves. Yeah. None of them ever survive because, well, now we've got the brilliant green rasboras in there. And even the Cory cats themselves, the other ones will just go in and try to eat the eggs, and the fish pick at them. And then if anything were to hatch, they'd just get eaten up. So again, I'm not overly concerned about any hybridization for the Cories, because most of the time the eggs and or the little tiny fry would be fish food, especially if you've got anything in there like mystery snails, bristlenose plecos, Chinese algae eaters, something that's going to eat those things. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the matter. Maybe other people have experienced different things. Michael, thank you so much for the super chat. I just got 1 male, 3 female, and 2 juvenile Maltese that I put in a 40 breeder. Is crushed aragonite good to mix in the sand to get that pH up? Yeah, that's a good option. So you've got a couple things that you can do there. The aragonite, I think, is probably one of the best options you have. You could also look at some of the cichlid salts, like I've said before, like the Fritz Aquatics, they're our channel sponsor, just to be clear, but they have a cichlid, African cichlid salt buffer, and it tells you on the directions, okay, use this many tablespoons per this many gallons to buffer that pH. You just got to really be on your game and make sure that when you're doing your water changes that you're adding back that buffering salt based on the volume of water that you changed out for that week or whatever. But yeah, that's a good mix to do that. Whips World, riddle me this, Professor Primetime. I want to upgrade my 55s to 90s. Where would you go to get the best deal for your dollar? Well, the best deal for your dollar is going to be somebody who's like, yeah, I got this 90 gallon, I don't want it anymore, and they're selling it on Craigslist or one of the classifieds. That's by far usually the best deal that you're going to get, especially if you're looking for stands and lids and everything to go with it. There are fish stores around us that have 90s, local fish stores that have 90-gallon tanks that are reasonably priced. I mean, they're more expensive than the 75s, obviously, just because they're a little bit taller, not quite as common. Nice thing is, as you know, you're just going to use the same stand as a 75. So 55 stands won't work, but a 75-gallon stand is going to work because it's the same length and same width. It's just a little bit taller. But yeah, I don't know, especially right now, there's all kinds of supply chain disruptions going on. And so I don't necessarily know if you're going to be seeing a lot of fish tank sales for non-standard sizes. So you have to kind of look around and be patient is probably the number one thing.
That's boring.
Patience?
Yeah.
I know. I know it's boring, but yeah.
Kelly Castle had a question on mystery snails. I don't know if you're going to type it again. But if Lav snails in the house too, she may be able to assist you. So go ahead and...
Or Snail Team 6.
Yeah, I haven't seen Snail Team 6.
All right. But anyway, what was the question?
I don't know.
K-Stu, by the way, says, have you ever kept a royal pleco? What tank should a full-size one be in? Ours is 6 inches and a 75, moving to a 180 soon. Yeah, definitely get that fish into a very large tank. I've kept them before. Our water's not. I won't try it again because I've tried a few times now, and our water, it's just one of those things where every once in a while it's like, yeah, this fish probably wasn't doing well because our water parameters aren't where they need to be with our hard water with a high pH. Close to water, neutral or less, slightly less than that, maybe slightly on the acidic side, the better off it's going to be. I have seen royal plecos, no joke, man, like huge, every bit of 18 inches. And it wasn't just that they were long, it was the bodies were like as big as my head. They were massive, massive plecos. Some of the biggest plecos I've seen were royal plecos. So a 180 is going to be fine for a while. They're not exactly super fast growers. It might take a number of years for them to get anywhere close to that size, a number of years, but definitely a 180 is a good thing because a 180, the nice thing about that is you're not only got the 6-foot tank, but you've got a tank that's 24 inches wide. So that should give it the space that it needs. So that's a very good idea to get that into that tank. So cool.
IB Sam 7 said, hubby lost a bet with me this weekend and has to tag along at Aquashella Chicago. He keeps trying to get me to double or nothing.
No way. You've locked in. You've locked in that awesomeness. Don't chance it. Don't take a chance. Just be like, I'm sorry. You made the bet. Now you got to live with it. And now you've got to meet all the people at Aquashella.
Yeah, make them wear a fishy shirt.
That's right. Emily, thank you so much for the super chat. Tips for breeding corridor cats. I just got a group of 6 Adelphi. Oh, those are some of my favorites. A couple of weeks ago. Can't wait to meet you at Aquashella Chicago. I can't wait to meet you too. That's going to be awesome. So we've got those same Cory cats in a 75. I think it was last week or the week before. I was trying to remember the name of them, and there they are. So those are great Corys. Usually Cory cats. So first of all, for those, you're probably going to have better luck when you start getting into the pH of 7 or slightly lower with a little bit softer water. Some Cory cats, like for us, the albinos, the standard greens, and this more common Corys, they breed readily for us at an 8.2 pH and water of 10 degrees hardness. I don't think the Adelphoi are going to breed for us because our water is too hard, our pH is too high. But let's assume that you have water that's a little bit closer to neutral. Then, one, it's going to take some time. So if you've got them right now and you bought them and they're maybe an inch or so and they're still kind of on the little side, little cute Cory cats, give them a little bit of time. But as they get larger, first of all, the females are they're going to be considerably larger than the males. They're going to have big, huge bellies. Most people who breed Corys for a living, and that is not me, what tends to happen for us with the albinos, which again, they're easy. They're not the same type of Cory cat in terms of breeding difficulty, and at least in my opinion, is they tend to like to breed after water changes, and they tend to like to breed after they've had full tummies of things like bloodworms. The other thing that you're going to want to watch for is when you start seeing two really just kind of very active around one another and they're kind of following each other along, maybe the size of glass on top of leaves and stuff. That's usually a clue that they're getting ready to put some eggs somewhere. What I would also say is a lot of times people look for Cory eggs just strictly on the glass because they often hear, oh yeah, my Cory cat laid eggs on the glass, but mine, they go all over the place. They'll lay that. That's like a egg laying spree, and it's crazy how many eggs they can produce in one at one time, especially when you've got real big females with a real big stomach. They'll lay them on the glass. I've seen them lay them all over anubias leaves, on rocks, on driftwood, on the uptake of sponge filters. So just once you see some eggs, start looking in other places in the tank for the rest. But Usually it's the bloodworms and a water change. Some people will have better luck if when they do the water change, the water's slightly cooler, just a couple degrees cooler. So that's how I roll with it. What you got?
Let's see. There was a comment. Oh, Alberto said, just ordered Dragonstone from Home Depot. Yeah, I think they have similar price, like $2 a pound.
Yeah. Something
like that for some of them. I don't know if they have all of them. But yeah, it seems to be making the way around all the home improvement stores.
Yeah, so, that's a public service announcement. I should have put that out there when it was just yesterday or the day before, where a subscriber, they commented on the Lowe's video that they were back in stock. I thought they said they were back in stock at Lowe's too. So if you're looking for that really good deal on aquarium rocks, check out, if this said Home Depot, good. But I also thought they were back in stock at Lowe's too. So just so you know, it was like, it might have been a little bit more now than it was before, but it was still very, very inexpensive. Still a good deal. Still a very good deal. All right, let's see here. Looking around. Shane says, cool semi-aggressive fish for a 55 gallon. Well, I'd say you've got options with the Imbunis cichlids. It's not the crazy aggressive ones, but yellow labs, Solosi, rusty cichlids, maybe some red zebras. Yeah, probably those. If you're looking for semi-aggressive, that's probably where I'd go. Depending on how you define semi-aggressive, you could maybe do a Geophagus. Now, I'm not mixing these, but you could do Geophagus Tapajos, but I wouldn't go any more than a pair. Because once you get into more than that, they start to duke it out a little bit. What else in a 55 that's semi-aggressive? You could go Lake Tanganyika fish, and so now we were just talking about like the gold ocelot. I know they're smaller, so I don't know what you mean by semi-aggressive. That means bigger fish or smaller, but a lot of the Lake Tanganyikans do well in a 55, like Maltese and Similis and gold ocelot. So pretty much all the shell dwellers would work in a 55. That's a tall enough tank, with the exception of the gold ocelotus and maybe like Meleagris, some of the more aggressive ones. You could be looking at maybe Cyprichromis, which provide a lot of action in the top half of the tank if you wanted to do something like that. You could do Lake Victorian cichlids. We don't talk about those enough on the channel, but the Lake Victorians are really pretty fish. So I've done species profiles on the tomato hap. The species 35, species 44s are really pretty. Now again, as they get older, you could have, especially like Victorians, they are definitely a little bit more aggressive, and so you could start having problems with the males, where you might have to go, okay, I've got a male and half a dozen females, so there's some options there. I wouldn't do anything big, and so sometimes if it's a 4-foot tank, what a lot of people want to do is, I'm going to throw a Jack Dempsey, a Green Terror, a Texas Cichlid, a Midas, a Red Devil, Oscars. Those are all bad options for a 55 in my opinion. The other thing you could do potentially in a 55 are firemouth cichlids, or pretty much any of the genus Therichthes, which is Therichthes miki is that's the firemouth. But I've had Therichthes maculopinus, which is a firemouth-like cichlid that worked out really well in a 33 long, which in a 55 is just taller, so that would be fine. Therichthes aureum gets a little bit more gold. That's a really pretty fish. If you want to see the Therichthes, I did a fish room tour of Rick's fish room, and I think he had Therichthes maculopinus, and we've had him in our fish room as well, and the Therichthes aureum are all interesting options. So definitely got some considerations there. Andrew asks, have we ever kept an axolotl? Nope. I haven't. I kept some Spanish rip newts, which I thought were really awesome. They were fully aquatic newts, and I think that's something that's on our radar again. But I haven't done axolotls, mostly because I just haven't had the space, and we wouldn't be able to keep one in our fish room because our fish room runs too hot, and the axolotls like cool. And in fact, I don't think we could successfully keep one in our house.
No. Because
axolotls really like to be cooler than what we can provide, and because we have the fish room, our entire house, we're committed. Like right now, the house thermostat in the summer is set at 78. So it's a little warm. In the winter time, it gets expensive because we set the thermostat at like 76. That allows us to keep the fish room with everything that's running down there. that, with the heat vents or closing the air conditioning vents and having the dehumidifier on, and sometimes a space heater, that allows us to keep the fish room at around 80, usually closer to 81, 82, which means that tanks are doing well at 78. So we wouldn't be able to do an axolotl around us. They're cool. I like them. I like them a lot, but I just don't want to get one and then have a situation where it's like, yeah, you kept it 10 degrees warmer than it should have been.
Yeah.
So, Coventry Doherty at Clint Walker, will you be at Aquashella Chicago? Yeah, Clint, you almost got to make
No, he said he's not going.
Dude.
Party pooper.
Yeah, man. That should be something on everybody's bucket list, is like, I hit all the Aquashellas one year.
Well, I mean, you are from Texas, so you're going to go to the Texas one, right, Clint?
Oh, yeah. You're not going to have a whole lot of excuses
you're
from
there,
Texas,
dude. Georgia.
Yep. Michael says, Jason, do you know which day you will be speaking at Aquashella? They put it on the website already? Because I just found out I was doing that a day or two ago. So.
Oh, are you?
Oh, I didn't tell you?
No.
Well, good news.
Okay, now it makes sense what you were talking about before.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I am. So, and I don't know. So, and I don't even want to say, unless they put it out there, I don't know a whole lot, because the schedule is not out. I just checked right before the live stream to see if there was any schedule out or anything like that. And yeah, so I'm not sure. Let's see here. Simon says, minimum tank size you would recommend for Neolamprologus, Lelupi, Julidochromis, and possibly shell dwellers. Thanks. 4-foot tank, I think, would be a good idea. Could you get away with it in a 40 breeder? Maybe. But I would feel better with a 4-foot tank. And then what I would probably do is, if you're going to do the shell dweller thing, try to have at least a third, if not half the tank, sanded shells, and the other half would be more rock work for the shell dwellers. Or I'm sorry, for the rock dwellers like the Julidochromis and Lelupi. We have a 33 long right now that's got the Lelupi. It's got, what else does it have? Julidochromis transcriptus. At one point, we had the shell dwellers, the Calypterus shell dwellers, and that combination got along fairly decently. The Calypterus males were rough on one another, so that was a little problematic. But it was a 4-foot tank, so we had space for all the males. But that I would go a 4-foot tank for that kind of a combination.
Okay, Daryl wants to know, what's a cool fish you can breed the fish stores want to buy?
Ooh, well, all right. So one. Because I won't be able to answer all of it, I'll give you some suggestions, but we did an entire Breeding for Profit series. And one of the things, when I started out that series, we talked especially about not necessarily, like the first video wasn't about, okay, here's the fish you breed. It was about how to think through breeding for profit. What's going to be profitable for you? What are you going to be able to move? What kinds of fish are going to give you manageable amounts of fry? So and then I actually did a breeding for loss video too as part of that series, because a lot of people breed fish and they're like, oh, wow, I've got 100 babies. I'm going to bring them to the pet store and hopefully I'm going to get some money for them. And the problem is, yeah, you and a lot of other people bred those fish and had 100 babies, and now the pet store is like, I'll take them. And that's about all. I'm not even going to give you anything for them, because at this point I'm taking up a tank, if they even do that. So for instance, things like convicts, Oscars, red devil cichlids. There's not a big market for fish that will give you 100, or in the case of the Midas cichlids, where we had like 600 or 800 babies, or Oscars. Sometimes people are like, I want to breed my Oscars. That's cool, but what are you going to do when they give you 500, 600, 800 of them, and they're really cute when they're this big, and then all of a sudden they get to be an inch or an inch and a half, and now you've got to find the space for them. That can be very problematic. But in terms of stuff to breed that local fish stores may want, you're basically looking for stuff that's going to, think about it from their perspective and what they are going to be able to sell to the largest number of customers. There is a reason why, and I'm not saying to do this, but live bears, they're always in stock, right? And I'm not necessarily saying live bears are the way to go, because you're not going to get a lot of money for them. It's almost not worth the time when they can go, when a local fish store can go to a wholesaler who goes to a large farm, and they're producing these things by the tens of thousands. Same thing with tetras. It's like, are you really going to be able to breed, let's just say neon tetras? Like, oh, I'm going to breed neon tetras. That'll be fun to do, but is it worth the time, the effort, the space, and the food to breed those things and then know that you're going to get pennies for them because the large fish farms can just crank them out by the tens of thousands. So you're looking for a fish that is going to give you a little bit of resale that customers are going to want, that is going to apply to the largest number of customers. And also knowing that all regions are different. So for instance, one of the things I talk about in the video Breeding for Profit is what's going to be high dollar for the Chicagoland area is going to be different from the upper Northwest, where the water is very different. So in our area, hard water with a high pH. Upper Northwest, a lot of that area is softer water with a lower pH. So I could say, oh, you know what does well around here, and it does, is if you can breed some of the shell dwellers. One, because that's a fish that typically doesn't ship well. And so when you're talking about somebody breeding shell dwellers and then they're going to a wholesaler, and then from the wholesaler to the pet store and the pet store to the house, there's going to be some loss there because they don't do well with all the rapid changes in temperature, and if there's an ammonia spike. In our area, that's not a bad fish to breed. But if you're in the upper Northwest and everybody's got softer water with a lower pH, that's probably not a very good fish to breed at all, because how many customers are going to want to adjust their water parameters to keep those fish successfully? And are you going to want to do that? Are you going to want to adjust your water parameters to breed those fish and then sell them to people who don't have those water parameters either? So maybe in the upper Northwest, if you're looking at the really pretty apistogramma, like the Borellii or the McMaster might be a good option. But the thing there is you also need to wait for them to color up, because those more colorful fish aren't going to get you a whole lot of money if they're still basically brown or gray. And that's the thing with peacock cichlids in our area. I can breed the heck out of some peacock cichlids, but I also know when they're 1.5 inches or 2 inches, a lot of them haven't colored up yet. And yeah, I could sell them at a swap. I could put 6 of them in a bag for 15 or 20 bucks, and maybe they sell. But a pet store is not going to do that, because a pet store is like, nobody wants a gray or brown fish. Not nobody, but they're not going to be easily sellable. So it really comes down to your area. Like I said, I think the shell dwellers, if you've got harder water, are something that's not difficult to breed. Believe it or not, sometimes, and it really is region specific, but some of the bristlenose plecos, not necessarily the brown ones, like the common browns, but if you get some of the long fins or some of the ones with prettier colors, like the green dragons, the super reds, the calicos, the long fin varieties, the blue-eyed albinos, those are nice because the bristlenose plecos actually don't ship particularly well. So when you're getting large shipments from overseas into some of the wholesalers, those are not they're not great survival levels sometimes. So it can be beneficial for a local fish store to have a breeder who's like, oh wow, you've got 20 super reds, cool, let me get them from you because I know they're coming from the same water parameters, and I haven't had to ship them very far, and so hopefully the rates of the loss will be a little bit less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's a good question.
Okay.
All right, from Pompeii Ranch. I have 2 parrotfish alone in a 29-gallon. The female keeps laying eggs. Should I take them out right away or give them a few happy days? I know they are infertile. I just don't want them to be sad.
So, yeah, you're right. They're infertile. So there's a couple things going on there. One is, are they going to be moved to a larger tank at some point? Because those guys get 6 inches and really round, super active, and get a little crazy. But you've got a pair, so that kind of helps. I don't know necessarily if it's going to make a huge difference. I'm thinking back to, there's been plenty of times where my Severums have laid eggs. They just, at least for the South and Central American fish, where I've pulled the eggs because I want to put them in an egg tumbler because I've got bristlenose plecos in the tank, or I don't trust that the parents, because they're newer, are going to do a good job being a parent yet. I will generally remove the eggs, put them in an egg tumbler, grow them out, and for the most part, they just kind of forget that they were ever there for the most part. Every once in a while, you'll get a situation where you might get one fish that beats up on another because like, hey man, where's our kids? Where's our eggs? Aren't you supposed to be doing a job? And they get a little confused. It's tough to say how those fish are going to react because I've never had them do that before. But at least in my experience, they generally just forget that the whole thing ever happened. Yeah. Marty, thank you so much for the sticker. The celebrating little guy. Thank you so much.
Hey, Marty.
Yep. Paul, you bring up a good point too. Cories are always in short supply. People want them. That is especially true in our area. And so again, I don't know how it is nationally, and I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, Cory cats. Again, if I were breeding Cory cats, maybe I don't breed the really super common ones like the albinos and the brown, the bronze or the greens. But like the Adelphoi are really good. Orange lasers, something
cool.
A little bit different, something that
Violet.
is not quite as common. But yeah, Cory cats are definitely a big one. You're absolutely right about that. Let's see here. Delta Charlie said, sorry if you already said it, but did you buy anything from the recent swap? So yes, and members will see that tomorrow, at least in terms of fish. And then you showed off, hold on, I had to crack my back. That first thing wasn't a crack, that was me hitting my elbow on the chair, but
right.
I'm better now. So you showed off some of the plants that you got today. So if you check out the small scape and see the video that she released today, you'll see some of the plants. And then tomorrow I'll show off some of the fish. Yep. There's some
I don't
cool
ever go
things.
to a swap and not get anything.
Yeah, that's just not happening. It used to be where I would be the one who's buying stuff, and now it's just like the opposite. I'm the one selling the fish, and then she's the one buying the stuff.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. I'm
Sorry,
scrolling down. Yeah, Eman07. Hey, please recommend me some single wet pet ideas for a 3-foot acrylic rectangle tank. 3-foot acrylic. 3 foot. So I'm assuming, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, usually the 3 feet tanks, if they're standard size, are going to be in the neighborhood of 35 to 50 gallons. I mean, they can go as high as 65 gallons because you get the 65 gallons that are the same as the 40 breeders, and they are just a little bit taller. Single. I wouldn't, if you could let me know the dimensions. So 3 feet by what? Because we have a 3-foot tank that's a 12 long, and that would be a very different suggestion than if it's a 3-foot tank that's a 40 breeder or a 65. So yeah. Let's see here. Kelly said, worried my mystery snail pH 6.2, KH 0, GH is 300. No chlorine, nitrates 20, nitrites 0, 29 gallon with shrimp, snails, algae eater, nereids, guppies. Added Snello, wonder shells, snails are thin. Well, you did the right thing there by adding in the Snello and the wonder shells. That's going to help boost, it should help boost the KH, which means your pH is probably going to creep up on you a little bit, hopefully. That might be let's see here, you've got shrimp. You've got the shrimp in there too. So what kind of shrimp? Because that's going to play a role in what you can do with the pH. If it's Neocaridina, then you've got some room there with the water hardness and the pH for sure. If they're Caridina, then, or Caridina, however you want to pronounce it, then you are limited in how much more you're going to be able to boost the pH, and certainly how much you're going to want to up that KH, right? Your GH looks to be plenty fine. Maybe even if it was Caridina, GH might be a little bit high. So let me know what kind of shrimp. All right, let's see here. Paul said I got $45 for 5 stir-by juveniles at my club's auction. Yeah, they do pretty well. The Cory cats do well at our auctions as well. So for sure. All right, let's see. I'm scrolling down here. Case 2. I have an old green terror that likes to mate by himself. Afterwards, he is exhausted for a few days. I think this is shortening his lifespan. Any tips? Yeah, it could be. Likes to mate by himself. Well, I don't know. There's really not much you can do about that, I suppose. He's just one of those fish doing something that a fish does. But yeah, I don't know if there's really anything. I can't think of anything you can do about that. Let's see here. Michael says, I have a baby mid-devil. So Midas devil. It's about 2 inches long. It's with 8 other African cichlids and a 10-inch blue severum. Will it last? The devil is sold, and something else is why I'm asking. So it depends. We have we've actually had a good situation and a bad one. Our female Midas cichlid, Ruby, she's living in a 75 gallon with a bunch of peacocks, and they have been living together for quite some time now, at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And when she entered that tank, she was already quite large, probably 7 inches. Never had an issue, not once. When it comes to feeding time, it's her tank. There's no doubt about that. She runs the tank, but there are no fish in there that are fin nipped, at least not by her. And they get along wonderfully and always have. I had an opposite situation in a 125 where one of her offspring wound up, we had a bunch, right? So we bred some Midas cichlids. I threw a bunch of the fry in the 125, and I thought I'd gotten them all out and sold them out, and then we had one. I missed one. And that little one wound up being a male, and as soon as it got to about 5 or 6 inches and it started to get its little nuchal hump, it decided that it was going to push the Oscar into the corner, which was considerably larger than himself. It was going to push the 18-inch tilapia into another side of the tank and started to terrorize every very large peacock cichlid. And he was still only about 4 or 5 inches, and he absolutely was running that tank. So I had to pull him out, put him in a 30-gallon tote, and eventually sold him a couple weeks later. So if it's a male, I would say it's most likely not going to work long term. I would put money on it. If it's a female, you have a bigger chance of it working, but it's certainly not guaranteed because even the females it's going to run that tank no matter what. So Alice asks, how many peacock cichlids can I have in a 55 gallon? It depends on the peacock. The only one that I have done in a 55 and done well was Eureka Reds, and that was only because I had one male and about 6 females, and it was just a breeding group. The problem with peacocks in a 55 is some of them get pretty large. So I'm thinking about the Red Empress types, even the Ali cichlids, some of the Sunshine ones and stuff like that, and the red shoulders. They stay a little bit smaller, but it's definitely something where you're either going to want a male and maybe a half a dozen females, and just that's a breeding group. If you're trying to pull off an all-male peacock cichlid tank in a 55, that gets problematic because they get a little bit too large to do an all-male peacock tank long-term successfully in a 55. At least that's my opinion. I've done it in a 75 with more success. In fact, we've got the 75. It's actually a mixed tank. There's males and females in there. But even that one, if I get more than one male, like for instance, if I get multiple Red Empress males, that often doesn't work. That's how we wound up with all the peacocks in the 125 because my male Red Empress, we're starting to battle it out, so I had to move some of them to the 125. Same thing happened with the OBs. OBs are notorious for being fairly aggressive, so I had to move some of those out of the 75. But then, like, I would get the Eureka Red and the Red Empress, the male peacocks, and the male OB and the male Dragon Bloods. They all kind of left each other alone, and there was a bunch of females in there, and it's been working for years. But I personally don't like to try that in a 55. Now, the Mbunas are a different story. So if you like African cichlids and you want to do something, then earlier in the live stream I mentioned some of the more mellow Mbunas like the Yellow Labs, the Rusties, the Solosai, maybe the Red Zebras. Those might work in a 55. Finn Wiggles, thank you so much for the #1 fan jumping, dude. Appreciate it.
Finn.
Thank you so much. Let's see here. Eman said, sorry, it's 37.5 gallon, 36 by 15 by 16. Okay, so that's good. That's good to know. So it's a smaller 3-foot tank compared to the even the 40 breeder. So if you're looking for a single fish, 3 feet by 15 by 16, I don't know if I would. Whatever you do, I would personally try to keep the fish at a maximum of maybe 6 inches or so, just because it's only 15 inches from front to back, right? So it's kind of in between a 55 and a 75 in terms of the width. Length is pretty good at 3 feet. So but whatever you do, I try to keep it under that 5 or 6 inches. So a single fish, whew, boy. You could probably do something like a firemouth size. Again, I'm kind of on that streak tonight with the firemouth, so I don't know why. But something along that size. So maybe an electric blue acara, that would certainly work. That would be a more mellow fish. That would give you a lot of color. The regular blue acara are really pretty. Not even the electric blues, but the regulars. If I were doing that tank and I was just looking for something crazy and rare, I've mentioned this a number of times, but the Ivanacara Aroqueta are really crazy fish. If you want to see what that looks like, I did a fish room tour of Aquatic Clarity, and they had the Ivanacara in there. That was an amazing, amazing looking fish that I would probably try to find, but that's going to be a little bit tougher to find and probably a lot more expensive. But you're probably looking for like a cichlid type fish, I would imagine, for a tank like that. All right, let's see here. Let's see. I just lost my place here. Thank you so much, Keith, for becoming a primetime partner / primate / primetimer. Do we have
I think we should officially have a vote at some point, don't you think?
Yeah, we'll probably have to put up a members poll and just finally once and for all, because we've asked a number of times. Like, the problem is I can't commit because we've got a number of good suggestions, and so we're just a group of many names. Melissa says, question: first ever Daphnia culture arrived today. Now what? Easiest food? I don't know how to answer that question, unfortunately, because I have only had Daphnia once, and I believe the easiest food is green water. Right? So I think people who keep Daphne cultures are usually just chucking them in some green water, and that's the easiest thing to do. Yep. Does
L.R. Brett still do that out back? Didn't he have Daphne?
He's got it. Yeah, he had it in the fish rooms. Yeah, in the actual fish room. Clint Walker said electric blue acara, Nicaraguan cichlid. Yeah, that might be cool. The Cuban, too. The Cuban cichlid, I think, would be something where I don't think it gets as large as the jaguar. And those are really pretty fish, the Cuban. Let's see here.
You want a tiny fish question?
I do.
Okay. All right. This is from Keiko. I have had chili raspberries a few months now, and they haven't really become red. Would it be because they are young?
Yeah, that could be. That could be, or also the substrate in the background. So the lighter your substrate, or if you don't have a background, maybe it's just like a wall, just like a normal lighter colored wall. A lot of fish their colors will be dependent upon what's going on in the tank. So if there's really light colored decorations, if there's a lot of, just a lot of light coming down, if you've got a lighter substrate, lighter backgrounds, that can also heavily impact their color. Delta Charlie said, my 4-year-old surprised me with this one today. Where do fish keep their money? In a riverbank. I like it. That's a good one.
Good one.
That's a good one right there. Let's see here. Jeff says, hey guys, one other question. Oil film streak on the top of the water. What should I do? Freak out! Freak out! It's all you're gonna lose everything. No. Oil on the top of the fish, on the top of the water, usually means a couple things. One, if you can get a little bit more water flow towards the top, if it's possible, like I'm not saying, start a
wave
maker with a betta or angelfish, and I'll just kind of plash it against the oil film is gone, but my fish hasn't moved in a week. It looks like it's getting stressed out, but usually that will indicate that maybe there's a little bit of water flow, extra water flow that could be that might be necessary. The other thing too is that will form if you've got excess proteins or certainly excess lipids. So it might have something to do with your fish food. If you're feeding anything like what did I feed that one time that I forgot to rinse? It was frozen. I think it might have been frozen krill. And I wasn't thinking, and I thought it out, and I just started chucking off, putting chunks in all the tanks, and I got to about tank number 10, and I turn around, I'm like, oh, man, I forgot to rinse this stuff because it's oily, and the whole top of those tanks, all 10 of those tanks had this nice film of oil. So that can play a role too. So if you're feeding out fish food that's a little bit more oily or has a high protein content, that can sometimes do it. So Paul says redfish, bluefish sells Ivanacara. That's cool because those are some awesome fish. Let's see here. Clint Walker, also my keyboard had a freak out session. Keyboards do that sometimes.
Yeah.
You'll hit something, a little number thing or a letter thing gets pushed down and you can't even move it. Not cool. Brian says, I lost it. Brian, if you have a big tub or pond for the Daphnia, dried oak leaves are good for Daphnia too. As the breakdown, they feed off the microfauna. Well, that's good to know. Not something I've done. Let's see here. Is that Kiko L? Thank you so much for the super chat. Didn't have anything to say, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see here. We're scrolling. Clint said, hi, everybody. We got to hit the like button. Yep. All right. So we got to karate kick the like button right in the throat. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead and drop that like button, a headlock and a suplex. Is that what they call that? Suplex? Is that a wrestling move? That's on my mind because I don't know if you guys heard, but back in the 80s, there was this guy named Mr. Wonderful, and I heard that he passed on this past week. So that kind of stinks. I remember that dude. Didn't I even demonstrate like his thing that he did? Yeah. Yeah. Paul Orndorff.
Amazing.
This guy was sad.
Yeah.
Grew up with watching those guys. Suplex. Thanks, Fluffy McCumber. Suplex. You know what I meant. Yep. And a swirly.
All right. I want to see that on a sign.
What?
Fluffy McCumber for president.
Okay.
I think that has a great ring to it.
I think that is something that everybody should have.
Yeah.
Kind all might. Will Apistos get along with bettas? So I've done that combo. And it worked.
What?
Yep, in the 20 long, I had Apistos in, or I'm sorry, I had bettas in with crebensis, what was that? Pelvicachromis subocellatus. Never had an issue. I had them in with the Apistogramma panduro without any issues, but I am still very reticent, that's my word for the day, to recommend that combination because there is a chance that the Apistos might decide, that betta with those long fins up there, I don't really like the way that fish looks. Mm-hmm. And the fins are long, so let's go ahead and give that fish a little fin trim, if you will. So I've done it, and it wasn't something that I don't know if I necessarily set out to do it. It just kind of happened when I was moving fish around, and I kept an eye on it, like, okay, this worked. For whatever reason, it worked. But I don't know if I would try that on purpose, I guess is what I'm saying. John said at prime time, looking to offload pandacories, how much would you expect to charge? Thanks. If you could suggest a price starting with 12 for about 5 months, looking to thin out half. Thanks again. Well, it depends on where you're going with them. If you're going to a pet store, it just depends on how quickly they can move them and what they're getting them for if they go wholesale. Because pandacories are one of those ones that are typically pretty easy to get. And so if you're going to a pet store, maybe you look at it. It depends on, again, your market and what they're selling them for, but maybe you start out and say, hey, can I get 30%, 33%, a third of the retail price for them? They may be like, no, sorry, man, that I can get them cheaper just buying them from a wholesaler, or, and then you work your way from there. So, or maybe you'll be like, hey, can I get 33%? Like, yeah, sure, here you go. And then, like, oh, well, I could have probably gone a little higher next time. But I think that's probably a good bargaining point. If you're doing them at a swap, then is try to figure out what the retail price is, and then you go, a few bucks less than that if you can. So that's kind of how I would roll with it. All right, let's answer a few more.
Okay, here.
Okay.
Lumpy Dog wants to know, whose famous submission move was the figure 4 leg lock?
Hold on. So the Iron Sheik had the camel clutch. Figure 4, I know this. Jimmy Superfly Snuka had the jumping off the top rope. Hulk Hogan had the leg drop. Figure 4. So like Bobby Valentine, Tito Santana are coming to mind, but I don't feel strongly about either one of those guesses. Bobby Valentine, Tito. I would feel more strongly about Tito Santana. Wasn't the Junkyard Dog? I'm going to go with Tito Santana. You're going to have to let me know. Oh, Bret the Hitman Hart? No, yes. I'm also Tito Santana. Yeah. I haven't watched wrestling since probably the 90s, so I'm a Ric Flair. Yeah, but Ric Flair wasn't WWF, so I don't know if that counts. WCW is like, I didn't really watch that, except that I remember the other one that was the Von Erichs. Eric Von Erich, who some people said that he was actually the Warrior guy. John, thank you for the super chat. Says cheers. Well, thank you so much. Glad you're here. Maybe you can help. Bret Hart had the sharpshooter. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember. I stopped watching that stuff back in the day with Mankind and Stone Cold and Generation X. Yeah.
What's El Brasro?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know who that is.
Oh.
Let's see here. William says, I have a 40 breeder and I'm interested in cichlids. I was thinking of getting 6 Psilocybe or 3 yellow labs and 3 Mangano. Those are the ones that are kind of blue and they also have the yellow. Do you or chat have any suggestions in a 40 breeder? So if you're interested in breeding, I would probably just stick with one and get a colony. The best ratios in a 40 breeder are probably going to be something like 1 or 2 males, and for every male have probably 3 females. In my Psilocybe tank, it was not something I would recommend. I got 6 and I wound up with 4 males and 2 females. To this day they've gotten along. Now they're in a 55 gallon. They've still all just get along. They were siblings. It's worked out. Bred a bunch of them. We sold out of our Psilocybe at the swap last week. I didn't realize I've got a female holding, so I'll have to get her. But so and even with the yellow labs, I would just do one male to probably 3 females is probably pretty safe. If you're going to mix them, you can mix the Psilocybe and the yellow labs, but again, I'd probably just do a male with 3 females each, if you can. What's up? You just chilling?
I'm chilling.
All right, let's do 2 more, and then we're going to call it a day. Do you have a favorite fish movie? I have favorite movies where there are fish tanks in the movies, right? Like, yes. So for instance, that's a good...
Killer.
Oh, yeah. Kicking and Screaming. But that's saltwater, so that doesn't really count for me.
It's still funny.
But there's a fish tank in Mr. Mom. So it's back in the 80s. They have like an old school, probably 20 gallon. Mm-hmm. Christmas Vacation, they have the fish tank in that one.
Tetris.
Yep. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Naked Gun.
Oh, Naked Gun. That's saltwater.
Yeah.
Is that
lionfish.
Yeah, with the lionfish. Yep. So.
Really?
What?
You should name one right off the bat. It's like one of his favorite movies.
One of my favorite movies?
Yeah. Lethal Weapon.
Oh, Lethal Weapon. Yeah, I'm just here.
Miny.
Yeah, and they had like knife fish in that tank. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So, John, thank you so much for becoming a Primetime partner, Primate.
Yay!
Prime Timer. Appreciate you being here. Very cool. Deuce Bigelow. I think I've only seen that movie once, so that one I can't really speak of. All right, let's see here. Alice says, looking at starting a planted tank. How long, once the tank has been cycled, till I can add them in the plants, or can I add them straight away before the tank is cycled? Absolutely. Yeah, the plants, that's a great way to make sure your tank is ready for the fish a little bit sooner. So you can get the plants, you can basically set up that tank. Now, what I would recommend, depending on the plants, is usually when we set up a brand new tank, if we've got plants like crypts or something that's going to have an extensive root system like sword plants, jungle val, we usually put root tabs, kind of space them around every, I don't know, maybe 8 inches or so. So there's got like kind of an 8-inch circumference, and we just kind of place them around there, around the tank. And then if you've got stuff that's going to be more water column, like water sprite, water wisteria, hornwort, anubias, maybe a squirt or so. I mean, follow the directions for the liquid fertilizers. But yeah, and then just go with it. I mean, I would take it easy on the liquid fertilizers, especially if your plants, you don't have that many, because sometimes that can lead to like a massive algae bloom. But that's a great way to make sure your tank is ready a little bit sooner. So for sure. All right, everybody, I think we are going to call it a night because it's about that time. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. A lot of good questions tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody and all the super chats and everybody who came members, and Clint for holding down the fort and posting Clint. All the things. Really appreciate it. Our plan is we're going to be back next week. Don't know 100% sure if we're going to be in the new live stream studio, but that's what we're shooting for, so we'll see. And then we've got the videos coming out Friday and Saturday, so hopefully you get a chance to check those out. And we will see you next week. Have a wonderful rest of the week.
Bye.